now there's so life and domain to accommodate for the prokaryotes. So, but in any case, so kingdom, phylum, class. So class Aves, that's all the birds, and then within the birds there are different orders, and then there's like I think 20 some orders, and then family, genus, species. So Passeriformes or Passerines is the largest order, and it actually contains over half of all the bird species in the world. So big group of birds within the 10,000 birds that we have in the world. So, but I wanted to share with you 6 of my favorite passerines from around the world. And so I've picked 6 of them from 6 of my favorite countries and places I've been. So, which brings us back to the lyrebird. And so, yeah, largest songbird on earth. The territorial males will get all the local ladies. They'll all mate with one male, and they each lay one big old egg. And they're found in forested regions of southeastern Australia. Around 3/4 of the country is arid desert land, and almost all of the forest, especially the rainforest, can be found within 100 miles of the eastern coast. So the tours that I did, and what a lot of birders do, at least on their first visit to Australia, is they pretty much just work that eastern coast from top to bottom, or vice versa. So, and a lot of the big cities are there too. So Cairns and Brisbane and Sydney and Tasmania, that's all on that eastern coast. And so that's where you can see these lyrebirds if you ever want to go see them. But they are incredible mimics. So even though it's spelled IYRE, like the tail, like the instrument, they are kind of like lyres, because you can hear them singing, and they will, like our mockingbirds, they'll sound like something else. So they can trick you in that sense. But the other thing I wanted to do for this presentation was show you guys some videos of each of the birds that I'm going to talk to you about. So I'll go ahead and cue up Sam for this first video about the lyrebird. Some of you may have seen it before, but if you're not, you're going to be impressed, I think.
All right.
What bird has the most elaborate, the most complex, and the most beautiful song in the world? Well, I guess there are lots of contenders, but this bird must be one of them. The superb lyrebird of southern Australia. He clears a space in the forest to serve as his concert platform. To persuade females to come close and admire his plumes, he sings the most complex song he can manage, and he does that by copying the songs of all the other birds he hears around him, such as the kookaburra. It's a very convincing impersonation. Even the original is fooled. He can imitate the calls of at least 20 different species. He also, in his attempt to outsing his rivals, incorporates other sounds that he hears in the forest. That was a camera shutter. And again. And now a camera with a motor drive. And that's a car
fire alarm. And now the sounds of foresters and their chainsaws working nearby.
All right. So pretty wild stuff, I think.
That was really good. I
That's
don't
crazy,
know.
isn't it?
That is the most unusual bird I think I've ever. Oh my gosh, he picks up any sound.
Yeah, very
Yes.
impressive mimic for sure. Our mockingbirds can do some of that stuff too, but
I don't think
yeah,
as good as that. That he was unbelievable. Wow,
yeah.
and impressive, when he put his just put his wings out and his feathers and whatever. It was wow. What a cool bird for Australia.
Yeah.
Going there now. I'll put that on my list. I have a long list
Add it to
here.
the list.
Beautiful bird.
Did you say you saw those? How frequently did you see those? Were they tough to find, or?
So they are not ever in like big numbers. It's a big bird, and they're like I said, they'll outside of breeding season, they pretty much keep to themselves or in pairs, and then they'll the males will try to attract females several when it's start of breeding season, but they have pretty well-known territories by now. They're such a well sought after bird that people know kind of the reliable spots. So with a little bit of effort, it's fairly easy to find one, but again, you have to go kind of to some particular spots, and you may have to spend an hour or two waiting for it to show up. But yeah, they're doable. I've led 3 tours there, and I got to see a couple every time. Yeah. Anybody else have any questions about the lyrebird before I move on to bird number 2? All right. Well, very good. Well, I'll finish my dry.
Cheers to that anyway.
Wes,
Yeah.
are they endangered by the logging that bird was imitating, or is it well managed?
Yeah. So I know that was kind of it is kind of a bittersweet moment when you hear that, because you're like, oh wow, that's so cool, but then you have that thought, well, that's also kind of sad, because they ought to be imitating these sounds they hear in their natural environment, not these chainsaws cutting their forest down. But yeah, I think it's stabilized a little bit, and where they're at, I think most of the forest in that eastern seaboard, they've done a good job of stopping deforestation, or at least leveling it out. Australia, I think overall does a pretty good job of conservation. From my experience, from what I saw when I was out there, they prioritize it, I would say, more than the average developed country. Yeah. So, okay, well, on to drink number 2. I've got my Sunset, which is our tart cherry. It's got a nice, pretty rosé color. You can see here, maybe. And I thought that would pair nicely, doing a little bird and cider pairing here. I thought that would pair nicely with our second bird that is a nice reddish color. but it was found in Ecuador. This second bird, it's found in Ecuador, and I saw it quite a bit when I was down there. I spent a few months as a lodge guide and manager at the Tandayapa Bird Lodge. It's in the northwestern slope of the Andes. It's a couple hour drive from Quito, the capital, where most folks fly into. So it's a great lodge. Lots of awesome birds there, lots of hummingbirds. If you're a hummingbird fan, definitely recommend going there. But hummingbirds are not in the Passerine family, so I couldn't pick a hummingbird for this one. Otherwise, I might have picked sword-billed hummingbird. But this bird is also awesome. So this bird is, and it's going to be this bottom one here. And it's called the Andean cock of the rock, which, yes, that's its real name. A bit of a crazy name. People always kind of do a double take when I say it, but cock is like a rooster. These birds kind of look like weird chickens, I guess, is where they got their name. So they're found along forested ravines above rivers on both slopes of the Andes, and the males are the more brightly colored ones, and a dozen or two of them will form display leks, which, if for those of you who haven't heard the term lek or lekking, leks are areas where lots of male birds come together. It's basically like a dance club. You can think of it like the form of where the club, right? So all the males go there and they perform and they try to get a lady. But usually the way it works is usually just one male or maybe a couple males will get any of the attention from the females. So the females, they pretty much all come to this agreement that the same male is the one they want to have. I'm actually not being shy. I'm actually just trying to think of the right word for it. But no, so basically they want the genes to be passed on. They're like, that guy, he's the biggest, most impressive, so whatever. So yeah, so they'll move on with that one. But yeah, so at these leks, basically they've got those crazy bill concealing pompadours to attract the female. They're not the most vocally impressive. They basically sound like squealing pigs, but it's quite the sight to behold. And we also have a video of that for you, Sam.
Okay.
This is when a female probably pops in close. Because when the males get quiet and set up, there's a female come and they're all looking at each other and looking at her. That's good, man. Thank you. So yeah, that gives you a little bit of a, I mean, you can kind of feel like you're there, right? You're going out before sunrise, drive maybe half an hour to this special spot that the local guides know about. You walk from the parking lot on this steep, muddy slope to get to this special spot. You get in this little blind, and you have to be quiet. You can't use flash or anything to disturb the birds. And then slowly the light starts to filter through the jungle, you know, the rainforest, the trees and everything, the vines. And then you start hearing this crazy, you know, pig squealing sound. And then sure enough, there's a dozen or 24 of these, you know, crazy, bright, orange, scarlet looking things. And it's just quite an experience for sure. But yeah, any questions about that one?
They seem like they have a really big head.
So
Like their eyes seem like they're a lot lower. Like, well, I mean, it's not like I mean, most birds, I mean, yeah, they have heads and their eyes, but I mean, there's a big difference.
yeah, so some birds will have an abnormal eye placement on their head, like woodcocks, for instance. But most birds have, you know, a fairly standard eye placement on the head. And these guys, even though it looks really weird, they have a standard eye placement. But the reason it looks odd is just because of the feathers. So all that you saw there almost all of that wasn't the head. It was mostly all, like, I describe it as a pompadour. I mean, just like a big old crazy.
Okay, so they just had it kind of
mohawk.
poofed up like in the 50s, how they used to poof your hair up.
Exactly. It's
go
just
back.
that's all you were seeing up there was feathers. It wasn't
That's really cool.
cranium, you know.
Well, yeah, and they were showing off, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful bird, beautiful bird.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's nice to know. Thank you.
Mhm. Anybody else? Okay. On to bird number 3 then, and cider number 3. So cider number 3 is called Obscura. It's a dry blackberry cider, and I think you can still get it right now, but it's a seasonal, so not one that we have all the time. The first 2 I showed you, we have all the time. Okay. So that one's got a really nice color, like a little purple. So cheers if you got them. Okay, so on to bird number 3, field guide number 3. So this is I'm taking you to a place that I went to most recently, and basically probably one of the last, if not the last, successful international birding tour before COVID hit, which was an IAS tour. So we went to Cuba. We went to Cuba last couple of days of February, first week of March, and that was right before they started closing things down. So we timed, like you could say, we timed it perfectly, I guess. I don't know, but this field guide is all the endemic birds of Cuba. If you haven't heard the term endemic, it means found in that place and nowhere else. So you can do it at different geographical scales. So you can say a bird is endemic to the Western Hemisphere. You can say a bird is endemic to North America. You could say a bird is endemic to, you know, the United Lower 48 or whatever. And then you could say a bird is endemic to Florida. So like Florida scrub jay or something. So works at all those different levels. So it just means it's just found there and nowhere else other than, you know, vagrants or whatever. So lots of cool birds there. And some of my favorites aren't passerines there. But my favorite passerine there actually isn't much to look at, but it has I think the most beautiful song of all the birds in Cuba, and maybe one of the most beautiful songs in the world. It's called the Cuban Solitaire. And so as you can see, it's not very gaudy or anything with its colors. It's mostly sort of a white and light brown. But it's a type of small thrush. So solitaires are a small type of thrush, kind of like our bluebirds too. Bluebirds are also in that thrush family. Most people don't think of bluebirds as being related to thrushes or types of thrushes, but they're in that thrush family. Turdidae, another funny bird name somebody came up with. But who's heard of the scientific name, quick side note, of the American robin before? Anybody know it? So it's Turdus migratorius, the migratory turd. Had to throw that one in there. So anyways, back to the Cuban solitaire. Its populations reside in woodlands along the eastern and western mountain ranges, and they have declined considerably due to deforestation. So that is a concern there. That is an area that that needs to be looked at. But yeah, they're one of nearly 30 endemic species on the island. So on our tour there, we saw basically all of the endemic species of Cuba that you can see without a whole lot of luck or going to some areas that are pretty hard to get to. So we got just about all of them. It was a great time. Ask anybody that went. My folks went. So it was really nice. So hopefully we'll get to do that again with IAS, Indiana Audubon. Hopefully we'll get to go there again. But I've got a video of this song, so check out this song. Very nice. Pretty, isn't it?
He's still pretty in his own way.
Don't always have the look. Sometimes you have to make up for it in other ways. So, anybody have any questions about Cuban solitaire? All very good listeners. All right.
Or they just want to see the ciders in the videos. That's what they're here for.
They're like, move it along, Wes. Okay, we got 3 more birds, 3 more ciders, and it's already 7:44 by my count. So I'll try to go.
Did you look for the ivory bill while you were in Cuba?
I wondered if somebody was going to ask about that. We didn't. We kept an eye and an ear out for it, but we did not do an extensive search of the last known location where they've been seen. So there's sort of a western and eastern mountain range in Cuba, and we mostly stayed on the western half of the island. We didn't get much over to the eastern half, so we weren't really in the prime spot where they've been seen. But I mean, it's just I think there's less than a 1% chance that there are any ivory-billed woodpeckers left there. I might put the percentage in US to 1 to 2%, but still pretty low. So, but we'll see. if you find one, you'll be probably the most famous person in the world for a couple of days. Yeah. All right, so on to the fourth bird and fourth cider. So this is Ashen Elm Headlong, one of my personal favorites. It is a dry hopped cider, so we use citra hops, so it's kind of citrusy and floral and nice and dry, so not too sweet. But the bird for that one I'm gonna do is from my time in Hong Kong. So I lived in Hong Kong for a year, 2007, 2008. I was volunteering in an orphanage there. And that is sort of where I got back into birding. And believe it or not, most people think Hong Kong birds, but Hong Kong actually, despite the downtown area, most people just think of Hong Kong and they think of the downtown area, which is basically like, you know, downtown New York City or whatever. But you take a short little rail ride or minibus ride out of the city and you can get to some nice offshore islands that have a little bit of habitat, or on the mainland you can get to some small forest patches, or there are some nice wetlands, places with mud flats, some really nice shorebird spots. So there's some habitat there. So anyways, that's where I got back into birding. And the bird for there that I picked is a pretty sexy one, Asian paradise flycatcher. So the males are these white ones and the females are these sort of white and rufous ones with these crazy tails. So they're kind of like what we wish all our flycatchers look like. You know, we most of the time when we see flycatchers, we see little drab green, gray things that you can't identify unless they make a sound. But Hong Kong's got some really nice flycatchers. They've got some really colorful, striking flycatchers. Most of them you see in migration. Not too many of them that stay there and breed, but this paradise flycatcher is a migrant through Hong Kong that you can see annually. Really, I don't know if you could see, but they've got this really nice sky blue eye ring and bill, and a little crest, and those really nice long tails, and sexually dimorphic, meaning the males and females have different plumages, so two birds in one kind of thing. But the paradise flycatchers, if you've never heard of a paradise flycatcher, there's about 15 or so species in the world, found throughout Africa and Asia. And the genus is Terpsiphone, which means delights in murder, which is, I think, one of the great Latin names for a genus. Call it that because of its insect foraging proclivities, but I thought it was funny. So anywho, got a video of some Asian paradise flycatchers for you, Sam. Good. Thanks, Sam. So pretty neat looking bird. Anybody have any questions about that one?
I do. When I think, I've never been to Hong Kong, but when I think of Hong Kong, I think of a place that's hyper urbanized. Is there actually a fair amount of bird habitat there?
Yeah. So that's what I was attempting to say earlier, is that yes, there are some places you can go birding. Primarily, like I say, it's these offshore islands or on the mainland as you get closer to the border with China, away from downtown Hong Kong. So basically, the downtown is sort of where the mainland meets the offshore islands. And so as you radiate away from that downtown area, you get to have a little more habitat. So they have what they call their country parks. They've got a park system. I know there's at least a couple dozen of these country parks, but there are probably, I would say, 3 or 4 really great spots. So one is for migrants, an offshore island called Potpourri, and you can take a ferry out there from downtown. That's maybe an hour ride or something like that, and that's a really nice migrant hotspot that people like to hit in the spring and fall. And then Taipo Cow Forest is a really nice woodland that's pretty close to downtown, actually, where they preserved some forest. It's a little higher elevation, and a little slopey. So like in a lot of other parts of the world, even where there's been a lot of development or clearing, if you've got enough topography like ravines and things like that where people don't feel like it's worth their effort to try to develop it, those can be little refugia, little pockets of habitat that are able to escape the development. So, and then the most famous place is called Mai Po, and it's a Ramsar site. It's a wetland. It's with these mud flats, and so it's an internationally recognized place to see wetland birds and shorebirds. So, yeah, there are some spots.
Wes, I noticed that the bird was kind of shaking his tail. Is that a mating display, or like I know some of our flycatchers just wag their tail because that's what they do? Is it like a characteristic behavior, or what was going on there?
So that bird was being filmed at a hide in Thailand or India, But in any case, those are both areas where they've done a lot of work to develop hides for photographers, and at these spots they're able to attract birds either by feeding stations, or in this case it was a watering station. Basically, they've set up some sort of a water feature with a bubbler or something. And so that bird, what you were seeing was it was shaking off water. It had kind of bathed itself, and so it was perching there, and it was just shaking off the excess water. Yep. Anybody else? All right, cool. 2 more birds. I'll try to make it snappy here. So the next bird is one of my favorite birds in the world. It's near and dear to my heart, and it's from the land of Hawaii. And it's this bird here, just below my finger. And it's called the Maui parrotbill, or kiwi kiu is the Hawaiian name that they recently gave it. It had never had a Hawaiian name that they knew of, that they could find in the literature. But a lot of the local folks came together and said, we should give this bird a Hawaiian name. So they had a big naming ceremony and everything. It was really cool. But this bird was a bird that I worked closely with in 2014 I lived there for 4 months and worked for the Maui Forest Bird Recovery Project. And we were attempting to basically get as much population data as possible on the species and some of the other endangered native forest birds there. So most of the native forest birds there are honey creepers, which are descendants from finches. So they're kind of in that range, but highly specialized and adapted to their environments and to the things that they forage for. So that parrotbill, as you can see, big old schnoz, that they just have a lot of character. They're little chunky, squeaky, bull-headed, critically endangered birds, and they use those big bills to get grubs out of the stems, out of the bark of the native shrubs there. So they'll go around, and you can sometimes find them just by hearing the scratching sounds of them ripping open these stems looking for larvae. And so that's mostly what they eat. They also eat some berries and some other things. But yeah, they're one of the most endangered birds in the world. They think there's only a couple hundred of them left. And they're just hanging on by a thread, and the last remaining remnants of native rainforest on the slopes of Haleakala on East Maui. So they need our help. If you're looking for a good cause to support beyond all the other ones you probably already are doing, Maui Forest Bird Recovery Project, check them out. They're doing some great work. But the native species there on the Hawaiian Islands are they've got just a little bit of habitat, and beyond habitat loss, climate change and invasive species are causing a lot of issues for them. So I've got a video for that bird too, Sam.
Yeah, I'm filming it. Ja, je wilt poetsen. Ik heb een beeld vol. Kom achter me staan. Kom achter me staan. Ik heb een beeld filmd. Ja.
Oh yeah, nice. Very.
I just realized I forgot to do my cider for that bird.
Can't forget the cider.
I know, and it was a
Yes.
cider of the month, a fancy one. Is the margarita.
Okay, I couldn't find that at my store, so.
Yeah. So, and you won't find them at any stores, unfortunately. So the cider of the months you have to come visit us for. But yeah, every month we do a small batch, a small run of a specialty kind of cider. So margarita was maize, yeah, for Cinco de Mayo. And then the one we have right now is a sour cherry. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember what next month's is. Can't remember what next month's is. But I know later this fall we're doing a pawpaw cider, which I'm really excited about. I'll be gathering all the 300 pounds of pawpaws this fall so we can make a pawpaw cider. Anybody know about pawpaws? Nobody?
No, not at all.
Come on, people. All right, fair enough.
Explain what it is, or just leave us in suspense?
Pawpaws are North America's largest native edible fruit. So they grow in the wild in the eastern U.S. So basically anything east of the Mississippi, south of the northern, sort of Great Lakes states, south, not quite up to the Canadian border, and then not all the way south to the Gulf Coast and Florida, but pretty much all of that eastern U.S. you can find them. But they're in a tropical fruit family. They're the only member of their family in the U.S. And they are kind of like a mixture between a banana and a mango and vanilla custard. Some people call them the Indiana banana. So they're pretty cool. Check them out. But I digress. Okay, well, I'm going to take a shot of my Kiwi Q cider, of my margarita cider, and then get my last cider. Last cider, Fleeting Youth. Such another bittersweet thing to think about. So, Fleeting Youth is our most popular cider. It's our best seller. It's a nice red color, and it's fresh raspberries and lemon zest. It's really nice, really refreshing. So for our last bird.
What Wes, can you tell us more about the previous bird, the parrot-billed, whatever it was?
Oh, what about it?
Do they have you said they're highly endangered. Do they have a conservation program going on, and what does that look like? Are they breeding them in captivity or increasing habitat, or how are they doing that?
Yes, absolutely. So the Maui Forest Bird Recovery Project that I worked for it's really a collaboration between several entities. So you've got government, you got university, you got nonprofit, all working on this. Most of its remaining habitat is on a property called Waikamoe Preserve that's managed by the Nature Conservancy, owned by the Nature Conservancy. University of Hawaii is heavily involved, and it is a critically endangered listed species. So it's U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service also involved. And they are doing captive breeding. There are some birds in a captive breeding facility there on the island. So they are working on that, and part of that, what they're trying to do is restore some habitat on the adjacent, basically, to where they're at right now. They've done a lot of planting, seed collecting, and then planting in an area that they're hoping they can restore to have some of the habitat that they need, and then hopefully release some birds there on a slightly different, on the other side of that mountain range. So, one thing that's happened with Hawaiian honey creepers in the past, some of the birds that have gone extinct has been basically the result of habitat loss, shrinking their population down and shrinking their range where they're at on the island, and then hurricanes coming and wiping out the few birds that were left. So Hawaii's been basically the extinction capital of the world in the 20th century. So no other places has lost so many of their native creatures as the Hawaiian Islands, sadly. But yeah, so they're doing all of those things, Finn. They're working on all of those things to try to keep any more from being lost. But the major thing right now is that, in addition to the habitat loss, the climate change has caused the elevation of the mosquito line to keep rising. So all these birds are, the only habitat they've got left basically are these high elevation rainforests that haven't been cleared for agriculture or for housing. or commercial businesses. And so they've just kind of been hanging out in these sort of tops of these islands, and they had been sort of leveled off, but the warming temperatures have caused the line of where mosquitoes will survive and exist has been sort of going up and up and up on these islands. And Kauai, for instance, they're up at the top now. So the birds on Kauai have got nowhere to go to get away from these mosquitoes, which, you know, there didn't used to be mosquitoes on the islands. So they were introduced accidentally by a ship in Captain Cook's era. And so they've got like avian flu and avian pox and these things that they're giving to these birds that don't have natural resistance to those diseases. And so that's actually the main threat right now is avian diseases spread by the mosquito vector. So they're trying to find other places they can move them or try to get rid of these mosquitoes. And that's the main thing they're working on right now. Anybody else on QEQ? I know we're a little after 8, sorry. Okay, last bird. I'm gonna take you to Brazil. And gonna show you this little guy right here. The swallow-tailed manakin, AKA blue manakin, which is, I think, a horribly lame, boring name for it. So I call it the swallow-tailed manakin. But it's one of, well, before I move on that, I'll just say real quick, I lived and guided there in a place called Regoa in 2015, a really nice eco lodge there. So I was there for a few months. But yeah, these mannequins, they're in a deservedly famous family, Pipridae. You may have seen some mannequin videos on National Geographic or one of the Attenborough documentaries. There's a famous one that does the moonwalk like Michael Jackson. It kind of walks backwards on a branch, and the ones that hop over each other, and we'll see a video of that here in a minute. But very, you know, they've got a lot of character. A lot of people like them, highly sought after birds. But they also lek like those cockalorax. They lek in low elevation forests. And the video I have for you here, I'll just go straight to the video. It's actually of a lance-tailed manakin, but I couldn't find a good video of swallow-tailed manakin, but they look very similar. Just imagine a blue belly on the bird you're going to see, and that's basically the same thing. They're very closely related, and they have the same kind of lekking behavior that you'll see here. You gotta love the female looking just like totally disinterested.
Wes, are these the ones you know on the Our Planet on Netflix?
On Netflix, you said?
Yeah. I think they have one of these on there. I think it's the one that has 3, though.
It has more birds, you're saying? Yeah. I just want to show just a little bit more of this video. There's a little bit different behavior you'll get to see. Maybe. Little choppy. Okay, you can stop it. I don't know if it's working better for you guys. It's looking pretty choppy for me. You can't quite see what I was going to talk about, but I don't know if it's the same species as on the Netflix special, but I think it's probably something similar. But you were saying there were more males in the one you saw?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're mannequins of some sort. They have 3 of them though, and they do the same kind of little gesture, and basically the female doesn't care and then blows them off.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, and that happens. So basically with all these different mannequins, they all have some sort of, a lot of them, most of them have some sort of this lekking behavior where there's multiple males vying for the attention of a female. And the ones that we just saw and the swallowtail mannequins, they're sometimes just 2 birds, but a lot of times it can be like up to like 6 birds. But the way it works is it's sort of a cooperative system between the males. So basically there's only one male going into it looking to score. Like all the other males, it's not a competition. So all there's helper males, and then there's the alpha male or whatever that's trying to get with the female, and the other ones are just basically helping that older, and it's an older male. They're wingmen, exactly. So they're helping that older male try to have the best performance possible. So and with the, their thought is, okay, long term, we help this guy, then maybe later on when I'm older, I'll have younger males that will help me. So, and that gives them a chance to learn and perfect their technique and everything, learn from the old wise master or whatever. But yeah, they'll be anywhere from two to maybe like half a dozen birds sometimes. So it just sort of depends. Yeah. Anybody else? Questions?
Is the female impressed because he's attracted all these other males to give her such a wonderful display, or like do the others like intentionally not do well so he looks really good?
No, I think they're trying to put on the best show possible. I mean, there may be some sabotage going on, but and again, I know a little bit about these birds. There are mannequin specialists that have done their PhDs on these things that would probably be able to answer better that would definitely be able to answer better than I. But as far as I know, I don't know that they've observed been able to parse out intentional sabotage. But I think the current understanding is that, yeah, they're doing the best show they can. They want the male to win. They want the female to be happy. They want everybody to be happy, so that maybe that male dies,
right,
the older male, and then maybe that female, if she's happy, she'll be like, okay, well, I'll come back to this spot again. And then so that male's like, okay, well, she'll come back here. Once that guy kicks off, then she's still here. Then that's his chance. So
do we know what they're doing that ensures that she picks like the target male as opposed to all his buddies?
I think that they do. I think that maybe that the positioning, maybe there are different dance moves. There's like a whole sequence and everything. So, with some of these species, there's maybe like they figured out there's like 2 or 3 or 4 moves. Some species will have half a dozen or a dozen really distinct moves that they've figured out. But so I think with these guys, I think they're kind of doing the hopping thing, and then when the hopping stops, there's whatever male is closest to the female or something, he does some other kind of move. So I think that's how it works, but not 100%. All right. I know we're getting some chat messages. Sam, you want to take over? Does anybody else have any questions for me? I know we're losing folks because I went over time.
All right. Okay, while you guys think of your questions to ask Wes, if you have some before he leaves, we're going to do a quick 3 to 4 question trivia. Let's do it in the chat, please. So whoever kind of chats the answer first will get a point. You also got an extra point for having your Ash and Elm cider. So if you could remind me, whoops, should probably show the one that actually shows it. Who has their Ash and Elm cider, you get an extra point at a chance of winning the $25 gift card to Ash and Elm. So just 3 quick questions. Question number 1 is, what percentage of all birds are passerines? Approximately. Anyone remember? Take a shot. Any guesses? Give you a few more. Give a few seconds if anyone's on Facebook. All right. The answer, Wes, would you like to share the answers? They're all from Wes's presentation, so hope you're paying attention.
Well, so what I said in my presentation is that over half of all the birds in the world are in the passerine family. So I'd say if you put somewhere but over 50, but less than 100, or less, maybe. I mean, it's not 90%. Maybe if you put somewhere between 50 and 70% or something like that, it's in that ballpark.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I should have picked a more descriptive question. That's good. We got some backups. All right, question 2. Where is the superb lyrebird found? How fast can you all type?
Some people were paying attention.
They were.
That's good.
Should have come up with harder ones. More. Can't type fast enough. Still counts. Right. The answer is, what is it, Wes?
Australia, and Dan had it even more correct. He had very specific there. Eastern Australia. Yep.
Ooh. Extra point to Dan.
So yeah, Australia.
All right. Next question I have is, which bird that Wes was talking about comes from the genus that means delights in murder? Which bird that Wes was talking about comes from the genus that means delights in murder? Give you a few more seconds. Probably remember murderous birds. All right, Wes, you want to give the answer of which bird comes from the genus delights in murder?
Well, I'm just seeing the Zoom answers. Are we getting answers on Facebook too?
We are not. No, not that I can see.
Okay. Well, so from what I am seeing on the Zoom chat, a couple of you maybe got close, maybe partial credit. So yes, it was the flycatcher from Hong Kong. It's the Asian paradise flycatcher. Paradise flycatcher. There are some other types. So paradise is a term used a couple other times in the bird world. So off the top of my head, there is a group of birds called the paradise kingfishers. And so basically it just means like really pretty tropical and usually with long tails. So the paradise flycatchers and the paradise kingfishers have these really nice streamer-like tails. But yeah, Asian paradise flycatcher, but found in Hong Kong. So maybe give partial credit to those that put Hong Kong flycatcher.
It's a flycatcher of some sort, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just not from here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, last question, at least that I have, unless we need a tiebreaker. Approximately how old is Ash and Elm Cider Co.?
My mom better get this one right. Looked like she did. Oops, I should have said that.
Now you're gonna have to come up with another question. Mix of fly and fleeting youth.
Dry.
I'm like, oh, Fry and Fleeting Youth, that's a new one.
Maybe too much. Maybe a little too much.
All right, Wes, how old is Ash and Elm Cider Co.?
Oh, Mama got it right. 4 years.
Yay, 4 years. And when is the anniversary celebration?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We should pitch that, I guess. Yeah. Anniversary party is, I think it's the last Saturday in August. Let me double check. Yeah, last Saturday in August 29th. So it'll be a big outdoor thing. So socially distanced and all that, but it's always a good time. Music and food and a lot of specialty ciders we bust out of the vault for that one. So it's a good time.
Awesome. Well, if we are playing by those questions, I have Barb as the winner. Barbara. That's your mom, right?
That's Mom. I don't know. That's a little nepotism.
Well,
she says she defers. She says she defers. Give it. Who's second place?
If she's second, well, the problem is we got a tie. So, do you think you could come up with a last question?
Ooh, a tiebreaker?
Yeah, I need a tiebreaker question, Wes.
Yeah. Okay. Let me think of a good one. Let's see here.
While you guys are waiting, just remember Pints and Passerines will be back in 2 weeks. July 8th. I think we're talking birding at Goose Pond for that one. 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Next week, we have this, but it's the sister event version, Coffee and Corvids, on July 1st at 10 a.m. Eastern. We actually have the urban birder, David Lindo, joining us from Spain. So if you can be on that one, make sure to be on that one as well. So just plugging that quick while Wes came up with this question.
That's great. I hope to make that one. Okay, so here's a question. What is the term for when a bunch of males get together to try to attract a female? Who are people that are tied, Sam?
Well, I think Finn just won it with that one.
Finn won?
Yes.
All right.
Finn won. Although like 2 weeks in a row, Finn. Come on. But he did win. Congratulations, Finn. You win the $25 Ash and Elm Cider Co. gift card.
It pays. It pays to come to these things consistently.
Yeah.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone again for coming to Pints and Passerines. And again, thanks so much, Wes. We appreciate everything. And if you guys have any other questions for Wes and his travels and all of his birding, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, yeah, thanks for coming. And we will hopefully see you next week for Coffee and Corvids at 10 a.m. July 1st, or 2 weeks from now for Pints and Passerines again at the same time. Cool. Thanks again. Appreciate it. I gave you the cup. There's being some.
Oops, thank you. Forget to unmute. It was very